Hey everyone, I am Brandy Green. I was on Ghost Hunters International with my good friend Dustin Pari, who is across the way from me. We're staying 6 feet apart because it's super important.
For
Uh,
sure. Dear
uh,
God.
okay, so for those of you that used to watch the show, thank you. And thank you for still following both of us after all of these years. Um, Luckily for us and for you, Peacock TV is airing all of the old episodes, so you can totally binge at any time. I suggest you watch the episode and then come over and watch us. We're going to talk about uh, each location, things that we sort of kind of remember a little bit,
Right. For
hopefully.
sure. We share
Uh,
some behind the scenes stories and weird little tales and things that we couldn't discuss on television and such. And
yeah,
I think it's important what you touched on too, Brandy. Like the show had like a really decent fan base, and like worldwide. And it's always funny because all of a sudden they'll start airing the episodes in some other country, and I'll notice like on Twitter or Facebook or whatever, I'll start getting like a rash of people like emailing me from like the Philippines all of a sudden or like wherever. It's like, oh, it's now over there.
all right, so this time around, we are going to South Africa. And this was my second continent, I guess, with GHI. I was still pretty new. I think we're moving into like my third and fourth cases with
Yeah.
GHI.
Indeed.
So
I'll tell you, I love looking back and now being able to say I've been on 6 of the 7 continents. Like that's
I
pretty
know
good.
that I hate the cold, but I need to get to Antarctica. I need to just finish it.
Yeah, there was a pitch for a place out there, but we just it never came to fruition. So I was hoping we could have, but just didn't happen. Six
Yeah,
out of seven, still pretty good.
yeah, no, it was a McMurdo station.
Hmm.
And I guess like the insurance and all of that would have cost way more than
Yeah,
they wanted to spend.
because they had like plane wrecks there, and like where all the passengers were taken afterwards. Some did not survive, obviously. Yeah, it would have
Right.
been I think it would have been a cool case.
Yeah, quite literally a very cool case.
It was always cold everywhere we went, anywhere except for like I think Malaysia was hot and the Philippines because usually it was cheaper to send us, overseas where it was cold and nobody else was going. So it was always freezing.
It's so true.
Yeah,
Okay, so South Africa, I think our first stop in the aired episode was Nottingham Road Hotel, and
right.
that was in KwaZulu-Natal, South Africa. So, okay, Dustin, what do you remember?
I remember going to the travel clinic to get malaria pills before we had to leave, having to go get like all different shots and everything, and then walking around out there taking the malaria pills and like seeing spots and like overheating a lot, and then thinking, you know what, I'm just going to take my chances with malaria because these pills are so awful.
Yeah, sometimes you just have to call in as you see it and just go with it, right?
Just take a risk.
Truly experience
That's
all that is South Africa.
right. Yeah, if I'm going to get it, we're going to get it, and that's it. But I remember the towns that we're in were really nice, like for what they were. I remember seeing tabletop. I want to say it was called Tabletop Mountain,
Yep.
the big mountain that was there. That was amazing. The people were really cool. I remember the hotel where we stayed out there in the middle of nowhere. Suddenly, when we went to check out, all our bar tabs were like rang up super high by the locals that hung out in the bar every day and watched soccer. And obviously, the people that were serving them knew they weren't staying there, but they charged it to the good American tourists anyway.
Well, because we're all rich. Come on.
You get that reality show
I
money.
mean, right?
That's right. Production paid for it. They drank and they paid for it. So
Yeah. Well, I too remember the malaria meds. I remember I went to my travel consult doctor and he asked me like a barrage of questions. Where are you going? Why are you going there? And so I told him, well, I shoot this show. It's called Ghost Hunters International. And we walk around in the dark, like a lot of times in caves. And he's like, yeah, you're probably not going to want just the malaria. I'm going to give you like this, and this.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
I was good to go. He
Yeah.
knew, he told me, I am not going to prescribe you any of these malaria medications because they cause hallucinations. And it's
Right.
probably not a good thing for your line of work. And so I was pretty fine with the malaria meds I was on, but it was still crazy to like imagine like just walking outside and potentially getting infected and dying.
Yeah,
Like,
it could happen.
yeah.
Risk of the job. What were you doing? I'm not really sure. I remember actually my hotel room had black moles up above my bed in the corners of the room. And I remember coming home, I had a severe respiratory infection at the end of this trip.
Mhm.
And I got treated for like thrush, some other type of like lung infection. And I remember going to the pharmacy out there, and then I remember they kept using the term chesty cough. You have a chesty cough. I'm like, I don't, sure, that's where the cough originated from. I feel like we're talking like, a children's book, but yes, I've got the chesty cough. And they gave me, it was like Tylenol with codeine, like elixir, but it was like over the counter, like, here, just take this. It's like, great.
Yeah,
But
for sure. I
it was,
remember that.
yeah.
I remember that. That was when we were in Cape Town, and you were so incredibly sick, you couldn't even leave your hotel room. And I
Yeah.
remember going with a couple of the other cast members, and we were trying to find a pharmacy. And
Yeah.
like, these aren't like American pharmacies, okay?
Right.
They sell like some of the typical things you might recognize, but most of it's like homemade in an unmarked bottle, black syrup of some kind. You don't know what's in it. And they're like, no, it'll work. You're like,
Yeah.
okay, is he gonna die? What's happening? I remember getting you it. It was like a cough syrup or something.
Yeah. I think I took 5 bottles of various it'll work, and like was
Yeah.
able to film, but came home really sick at the end of it all.
So you loved South Africa.
Yeah, it was great. It was great. Wait, well, how about this? So I remember, so okay, I know we're kind of jumping ahead, but like in Cape Town, I remember being in my room in Cape Town and people like beating on the door in like the middle of the night. And I remember going out we would go in the morning to a little place for breakfast, and you would get your little sandwich with no avos. Did you know about the avocado spread? But I remember seeing a big dude hanging out on the street, and people would park their car, and he'd walk over and put his hand out, and you'd pay him money to protect your vehicle. And then if you didn't, when you walked away, he'd smash your window and take your stuff.
Yeah.
So like, he wasn't protecting it from anybody else.
Oh, no. You were clearly paying these people to steal your car.
It was awful.
That was the whole scheme.
It was amazing. What a
I remember that place, and everyone like signed the wall
the
in that
breakfast
place.
Yeah. The breakfast place is great. Yeah, we get like this some type of bread with bananas and caramel. It was great every day. I remember
Every day.
And well, because that was the thing, right? Like you're traveling, you find one place that's good. You're like, this is my spot for 2 weeks, because who the heck knows what else is out there?
So true. So
and you
true.
don't want to catch the chesty cough. So
that chesty cough.
Investigation. So we do the Nottingham Road Hotel, right? That was our first thing. What were the memories of that place?
So the Nottingham Road Hotel was this place that was originally built for the train. The train went through there. And I vaguely remember like they would have troublemakers coming in to the local farmers and stuff and stealing things, causing trouble. So they had built this building initially as like an outpost for their military, and then it became slowly like a bar, saloon, and kind of went from there. Um, and I remember when we were there, it's kind of like out in the middle of, it feels like nowhere. Like
Feels like nowhere, yeah, for sure. I remember the exterior
KwaZulu-Natal,
of it.
yeah, KwaZulu-Natal like sits near the Drakensberg Mountains, and
Mhm.
it's really like legit country. Uh, and I remember we went four-wheeling.
That's right. Yeah, that was
Yeah,
fun.
that was fun. I thought I was gonna die a few times, but it was fun.
Well, because Barry, I remember Barry specifically drove very rough. Like he would get up close to you on the other ATVs. Like he didn't care.
No, and it wasn't like a nice like paved or dirt
No.
road. It was literally boulders, like
Yeah.
tons, huge boulders that were just stacked on. So you were like
All
trying
over.
to maneuver, and I weighed like 110 pounds. So me trying to maneuver this giant quad over these boulders, that was something.
Yeah. And Barry was trying to race and make it a competition. You're just trying to survive.
I know, but I did it.
You did it.
I did it. And we were all very dirty. I
Yeah.
remember the dirt, just we looked terrible
Yeah.
afterwards.
After washing the clothes in the sink at Nottingham, trying to get that out.
Oh yeah.
God.
So in terms of the investigation, um, I don't honestly remember a ton. I know it had something to do with a woman who was believed to have either committed suicide by jumping out the window or she was pushed. And she was like supposed to be pregnant, and there was this whole story. I don't really think we found much there though, if memory serves. Nothing that jumps out.
No, I don't remember too much of anything really happening there outside of little side stories about the place. There was some electronics failure thing or something in one of the rooms. There was like a television thing or something, but yeah, nothing that seemed it was actually spirit connected. It seemed like the stories were larger than life, but the activity, at least when we were there, not so much, you know.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, so that
I was
was,
thinking a lot of the places though.
you know, it's true. I find that the majority of them are very into the whole myth and legend and you know, all of that. And there's generally never really any actual proof
Right.
of any of it ever happening.
Yeah. The
So
stories are nice. You know, stories take on a kind of life of their own, I think, in some of these places. And it's good to have those kind of stories for like oral tradition purposes. But when you try to actually come down to, okay, scientifically used in quotes because, you know, it's such a loose study of what we do, but, you know, do X, Y, and Z happen? No, or if yes, because this is happening. So then it kind of takes the spirit out of it, you know?
right, that's true. Before we leave KwaZulu-Natal, I remember first that there was like a little store, like a little market, and then next to it was like a Reiki healer. And we
Yeah.
all walked in because we never had access to the vehicles. That was always a crew thing. We walked everywhere. I don't, if I had one of those pedometers, I think it would have exploded,
Right.
honestly. I just remember walking up the road, walking into the small, tiny little village. It wasn't even really a town.
Yeah.
And we had tried to find something to eat. A couple of the guys stopped to get a Reiki massage. And then somehow we just left Andy Andrews behind. I don't even remember how that happened.
Hey, he slips away, goes into things. It was funny though. I do remember. So it's interesting coming from having done Ghost Hunters to doing GHI. There were so many different things. Like we got like kind of crap food on GHI. Like our craft services tables were always garbage. I remember at one time they tried to limit how many bottles of water we could have per case. They were like, "What are you talking about?" Like it was ridiculous. But back on GH, like we could always get a Yukon and like drive somewhere, like, you know, a cast vehicle, like you go get lunch, go do whatever. GHI, it's like Barry and I usually had to drive like the cast van on travel day to wherever we're going. But then once we got there, you didn't get the van anymore. So you walked everywhere. And I do remember actually going to to the Reiki massage thing, I remember getting a scalp massage, and I just sat in this chair, and this woman just rubbed my head, and it was like amazing. Like, it was really great. I don't know, it was like reading the bumps on your head. It was like an old Bugs Bunny cartoon, but it was wonderful, and I really liked it. And I wrote a story about that store. It's called Naming the Store, and I think that's in my Kaleidoscope Fragments of My Life book. And
I think I have that somewhere. I'll have to look for it.
But it was always interesting to go to the stores like that because, one, like, coming from an American understanding and like some of these places, like, eggs aren't always refrigerated because the process is different. So you go into the store and there's just like eggs piled up in the middle of the floor, and you're thinking, why aren't these in the refrigerator? Like, what's going on? You know, but it's a whole different process from the way we do things to how they do it. And those stores, like, they just serve so many multi-function purposes. So there's all kinds of like weird stuff everywhere around there. So it was cool. Like, I like that a lot. I like the strangeness of it.
Speaking of strange, let's segue into the nightmare hike.
Oh, so they wanted us to, they always tried to find these fun things for us to do that usually never even made air. Like, I think the only one they ever used is when we went like tubing or something, like I don't know what it was. But in Africa, they're like, yeah, we're going to take you on a nice scenic hike. And it was going to take, what, maybe 20 minutes to an hour? What happened, Brandy?
Yep. So, supposed to be 45 minutes. We're going to take this hike easy, more like just a slow-paced jaunt to this cave where these hikers had this crazy nightmare that was supposed to be linked to the Zulu tribe there, right? And so we're like, okay, we park, we start hiking, we start descending and climbing up mountains and crevasses. And Brian Donnell, who was the director of photography, we were supposed to do a walk and talk kind of stuff. And he's filming us, but he's walking backwards towards the cliff.
Yeah.
And so we're supposed to just be like, ha, ha, ha. But really, I'm looking out of my peripheral, like, this dude is going to die.
Please don't fall off the cliff, sir.
Yeah, no, for sure. So what was it, like 3 hours?
It was about 2.5 to 3 hours before we reached our location. And we had two guides, the guys that were taking us to the nightmare spot.
That got lost, by the way.
Got lost, and we just and like we kind of sensed that we've gotten misled here, and that these guys were lost. And the director, Dave, was trying to talk to them, and Dave's like going along with them. The two guys. So there was a big guy and a little guy. The big guy always reminded me of the singer from PM Dawn. That's what he reminded me of, and I love PM Dawn. May he rest in peace. But they get us out there, and he starts telling us this story, and then it turns into like an infomercial where he's trying to sell us body cream that they had made, and he's got it like all of a sudden the little guy gives him this stuff, and they're trying to sell us containers of basically like some type of homemade body cream.
They have it in like a Walmart like plastic bag. It's like super shady.
Out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And my favorite part is when Dave tried to ask the guys, like, well, tell them about, you know, what people come out here and do and like the nightmare. And the guy goes, you know how you say, make the sex. We went on like it was supposed to be a half-hour walk. It was a 3-hour like jaunt out into the wilderness. And we go over some cliff to a place where basically it's like make out inspiration point for the people of this area.
Yeah, it was supposed to be this cave and super cool with like cave paint, like Zulu warrior cave paintings and all of this stuff. It was like an overhang, maybe.
Maybe.
There were rocks. I remember we were walking back and it was pitch dark.
And they left us.
And we had 2 flashlights among 17 people.
Yeah,
Nancy Kwan.
It was a daytime walk.
Yeah, Nancy Kwan, who was the head of the sound department, she lost her shoe in like mud, like that just almost sucked her entire body down with with her shoe. And then
And you have to be aware of like jungle cats that were out there,
yeah,
snakes, like all this stuff.
You could hear the baboons.
Yeah.
Out in the distance.
Yeah.
I mean, we were legitimately out exposed to anything, any wild animal.
Yeah. And it was
It's
dark.
a lot. Yeah.
It was dark and like a fog had swept in, like you couldn't see, like just trying to keep track of each other was tough. And then the fact that our two guides like just ditched us when we didn't buy the body butter, like, great, this is awful. Dear Mom, I have chesty cough and almost died where people make the sex. I'm becoming one of the baboon people now. That's it. Dragged off by the animals.
Seriously, I mean, we were illuminated by the moon, and that was pretty much it. Like out in the elements with wild baboons, with lions, with all of it. It could have ended really badly. Like looking back,
dangerous.
Yeah, looking back on it, it was like we could have all died.
Right.
Really.
Not worried about demons, worried about falling off some ridge somewhere out in Africa.
But don't you agree, having traveled as much as we have, and you get all of these amazing, elaborate stories. We've stood on gateways to hell and all of these things that were supposed to be, flying demons and all of this stuff. Right. But I always found the danger really rested in either the location falling apart or the locals, like the actual living people.
Yeah. It's always the living people that I think are the most dangerous thing, and it's really bad when they're like sketchy production people from other countries and stuff. Like people were paying to help us along. Right. It's or the cases where we had to hire protection to keep us safe from the other locals. It was crazy. But that was Nightmare Hike was one of the best sidebar stories that never aired, but was really kind of frightening in hindsight.
Absolutely. One last stop on our South African journey, right. And that was what we called Cape Town Castle, but I think it was the Castle of Good Hope.
Good Hope, yeah. Yep.
So
and, that was military castle at one point, right? So it had like a military purpose. Remember, there was a claim of people seeing an apparition of I want to say a woman coming down a little stairwell, which we did not witness. I remember that. And wasn't there something unique about our host at this place? Was this the big guy?
Yes. So this guy, his name was Wilhelm, and he was like towering over everyone in our cast and crew. Because we had you're tall. We had some really tall people with us. He was like 6'10". I don't even know. Like, I don't think I've ever seen anyone that tall before in my life.
Yeah, he's like a basketball player hanging out with us all day.
Super nice guy. A little awkward, but really nice. Very enthusiastic. All I really remember about this location was I think almost all of us chose to do a solo investigation down in the dungeon.
Yeah.
And the torture chamber dungeon, because a dungeon's not enough. It has to be a torture chamber and a dungeon.
Of course.
And I remember sitting down there, cameras on sticks, like I was the only one in there. And I was in there for it felt like an hour. I mean, I was in there for a while. Nothing was happening. I was about to call it quits. And I had the trifold meter sitting on the ground next to me with an audio recorder. And all of a sudden, I felt what felt like a hand go straight down my face, very gently. And as a girl, we had flyaway, so I'm making sure it wasn't my hair. I was making sure it wasn't a spider. There was nothing there. When that happened, the trifold meter, the EMF spiked.
Right.
Only time, total one-off, but it was odd. And then from what I remember, Barry had something like hit his ear when he was down there too.
Yeah, I remember Barry getting freaked out down in the basement area for sure. And what I liked about your experience there, and I think this is something that for me holds true in any case anywhere, is, you know, a one-time experience by itself is interesting, but when you have another piece of evidence and another piece of equipment that's going off around the same time, you know, that's why I often tell people, like, use a trifold meter with like an audible response so that you don't have to sit there and watch it the whole time. But if you feel something like come near you or touch you, or you get a cold spot, or on your recorder you get an EVP, and then you also hear the trifield meter going off at the same time, well, now you've got two things working together, you know? One thing by itself, yeah, it's kind of interesting, but well, now we've got both these things kind of working together in a way that we believe that they do when this kind of stuff happens. So I think that's always an interesting kind of way for it all to become one, you know?
Right. No, I always love cross-referencing. And, you know, so many people, I've worked on other shows and, you know, in a producer format and all of that, but people love the Mel meter because it's easy. You know, you won't have to carry all of this equipment with you. But the problem is, it's just one device. What happens when it stops working or needs to be recalibrated? So I always tell people you should have multiple pieces of equipment, not just in case a battery dies, you have something else to back it up, but for that purpose, to be able to cross-reference and see what was really going on at the time. Otherwise, it's just a personal feeling I had with nothing to back it up in any way.
I remember leaving Africa, and I was eager to just get back home because, as we mentioned, I was sick. And I remember we had gone to England prior to this trip, and I had bought, being a huge Beatles fan, a Cavern Club like magnet, a Beatles T-shirt, like pens, all this stuff. And I had all my luggage. We're at the airport, and we're going to check in, and the woman's like, "It's too early for you to check in." I'm like, "What do you mean? Like, you know, it's a couple hours." "No, don't check in now because they steal stuff out of the luggage." And I'm like, "Who?" "Like the employees." I'm like, "That doesn't make any sense." And I was like, whatever, like, I'm just, you know, drop it off. I didn't wrap it in the saran wrap or do any of that crap that they sell as like a sidebar. Just, it's clothes and whatever. And get back home, land and here in Rhode Island, and no luggage. And the luggage showed up 3 months later. 3 months later, I was at work and I get a phone call that the bag's being dropped off at my house. And I get home and I open it up, and the Cavern Club magnet was there. All my clothes were gone, like my jeans, my GHI shirts. I think I had a couple of DVDs. Like, I had nothing of value. But what is in the case? Bed sheets, one hiking boot, ladies' earrings, and condom wrappers. Wonderful. Just wonderful. So they just fill it with whatever crap they find. I don't even know why, but here it is. And I didn't even want the bag. I'm like, this is, everything's tainted now.
Ew. That was Durban. That was Durban, South Africa. So if you can avoid Durban airport.
Right. Or just show up just in time to get the bag on. Like, that's the trick.
Or just don't check anything and just do carry on.
Carry on everything you can. These are the stories of our lives, Miss Green, from what we remember.
From what we remember of South Africa. Is there anything else that you want to mention?
No, unless there's something I should be mentioning. I think that's it. I eventually got well back home thanks to good old American antibiotics.
Yay, FDA. All right. Well, that is it for our South Africa episode. Join us next time for some other fun and semi-accurate memories.
Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll catch you next time.
All right. Do you want me to intro this one, or are you good doing that?
Yeah. Let's have you intro one.
Okay. All right.
Mark, I'm just going to lose the flame. I'm getting hot.
Oh, and we're going to need to actually film that because the audience isn't going to be able to understand.
I used to love Dave Hobbs. Maybe you should like take a line like, "Hey, it's getting dark. Let's take our sunglasses off." Why the hell would anybody ever say that, man? God bless them.
Right.